everybody. Welcome to Taped Crusaders, the podcast that reviews every single superhero thingamabob ever made. I'm your co-host, Mike L., and as always, I'm joined by...
Joshua Mervell, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 1992 Tim Burton film, Batman Returns.
That's right, and we're joined, as always, by our co-host, Champ Ian. How's it going, Champ Ian?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I'm good.
All right.
Yeah, good.
Sweet! So guess what? We just reviewed Batman Returns, one of the highlights of our Taped Crusaders podcast, I think.
Well, it's no Captain America.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're
What
coming
could
off,
be?
something big here. But let me just say one thing here. I've seen this movie between 50 and 100 times, and I
Okay.
love it. I love it to death. But can someone tell me what the fuck was going on in this movie? Because I have no idea. And I've seen it 1,000 times. Josh, I'm not telling you to summarize the plot.
Okay,
But
so you just
were
want,
you as
like...
okay, let's put it this way.
Mm-hmm.
I love this movie. I love it a lot. But within 5 minutes of this movie starting, the plot went off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually was watching this movie. And again, I've seen it recently, like
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago when they re-released it in theaters. And I'm sitting there going, I actually don't know what we're supposed to be following, why they're doing what they're doing. The way it jumps around between three different characters was
Four at times.
four
Like,
was a mess the first time I saw it. And
Yeah.
It's still a mess in my opinion. I have a lot to say about it, but the main thing, okay, number one, too many characters. That's number one. But number two is that even though I do think the script by Daniel Waters, it does have a lot of I guess depth to it, you could say. I think the actual plot of the motivations and who wants what is a complete mess.
interesting.
Other than that, I love the movie. Josh, what do you think?
See, I don't think that there's too many characters, personally.
Too many villains? No?
No, I think that this movie's big mistake, in my opinion, is that Max Schreck is not a bigger villain.
Okay.
I think that if we see him pulling the strings more and kind of pushing Oswald, pushing Selena Kyle, like kind of pushing them into these villain roles, then we'll feel a little bit more sympathetic for them and they'll feel less like supervillains. And then maybe they'll redeem themselves, maybe they won't, and in this case, they both really don't redeem themselves by the end. But I feel like that's the one thing missing from this movie, because this movie is about this tycoon wants to make a plant, and he is like an energy plant, and he has secret plans to siphon the energy from Gotham rather than him giving it more energy. And he's kind of using this disfigured kind of creature that lives in the sewers as a way to leverage his way to get the money for this plant. So right?
First time I've heard that. I didn't know that. Is that what happened? I didn't know.
Yeah, that's what happens, right?
I had no idea. I had no idea. Okay. Because now I know the plot of the movie. Okay, Ian, what did you think of this movie?
This movie was a confusing mess.
Okay.
This movie had way too many... Sorry, I'm disagreeing with you here, Josh, a little bit. Way too many kind of villains. Because nobody's really the villain. Max Schreck's a bit of a dick. And I mean, he does push his secretary out of a window.
Right.
But his whole motivation is, like you said, to build this power plant. Now, as he's explaining this, we have a power surplus. Well, not forecasting this growth. We need more power for the future. Then we find out that he's actually doing something sneaky behind the scenes. What gets Selena in trouble, his assistant, is that she discovers that it is not a power plant that he's trying to build, but a giant capacitor that is going to siphon power and then store it. Now, okay, Max, why don't you just say that? Call it that. Hey, I'm building a giant capacitor. What's it going to do? It's going to store power. Until when? Until we need it? I don't know. The power never goes out in Gotham now because we have this weird backup system. It sounds as though there's some benefits to his plan. I don't know. Well, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because nothing's fully realized here. There's a few sentences of conversation about what his ultimate goals are. Everyone else is just confused and just... I want to kidnap everyone's firstborn son for some reason. I want to kill my old boss for some reason. Well, I mean, she got pushed out a window, but...
Yeah.
You know, okay, let's imagine a quick scenario. Let's imagine two different versions of this movie that don't exist yet. Okay, take out Catwoman, and let's imagine the Penguin Max Schreck movie. Now, this whole thing about Max Schreck using Penguin to become the mayor, to I'm not kidding when I say I've seen this movie a million times, and this idea that he's using Max or using Penguin. Yes, I see that he's using him. The fact that he was using him to get money, I did not know that. Was that in the movie?
To get money.
To get not money, but like
to get support.
Yeah, to get support for like the approval of this giant power plant.
Is that the most logical, simplistic, straightforward way to do it? Because I'm just saying, because it seems like a very convoluted way to force these two characters together. Now, if you would have removed Max Schreck from the movie and it was Penguin that had this plan, then you wouldn't need another villain. It would just be Penguin who shows up with this idea, and then Batman has to figure out that no, there's actually another ulterior motive to what he's doing, and then he has to expose him. Okay, let me give an example. This is, again, I've seen this movie 1,000 times. Penguin announces he's running for mayor. Then the next scene is things are blowing up. I don't know why they're blowing up. Okay. Then Catwoman shows up, does her thing. Then Penguin is standing on a movie set, and Batman walks over to him on the movie set. They confront each other, and Batman says something like admiring your handiwork. And I think what they're trying to say is that while people are trying to make, or Penguin's trying to make Batman look bad, this is making Penguin look bad, I think, and Batman is thinking, well, you're behind it, and I'm going to prove you're behind it. But then at some point, Penguin says, you don't really think you'll win, do you? I've seen this movie 100 times. Win what? Win what? What is he talking about?
The confrontation between the two of them. Because we know that Penguin's the villain. Doesn't matter what they know in the movie. We know, so the line makes sense to us.
And Batman also confronts him, and the Penguin knows that Batman knows he's behind it.
But even at this point, I think that Batman has said something to the effect that he knows that the Penguin is behind the red triangle army or something.
Yeah, he does say that.
But he just can't prove it.
Yeah.
So he has no basis to really believe this yet.
But okay, at least in the first Tim Burton Batman film, it was very clear that what is it, Grissom? Mm-hmm. What's the actor's name in the first Batman film?
I don't remember.
The bad guy.
Jack Nicholson?
No, not Jack Nicholson. the other guy.
Yeah, his boss.
The
crime boss.
The boss.
Oh,
yeah.
Jeez,
hello. This is embarrassment, folks. Whatever that guy's name is that's been in 1,000 movies. It's very clear that he is a gangster, and he has mafia-type people working for him, and they commit mafia-type things. In this movie, what are the bad guys doing? Dressing up in circus costumes, running around and kind of terrorizing people, but not really. And
they wanted to shoot up the Christmas tree.
Yeah, that's what
right? Because the Penguin was abandoned over Christmas, so he hates Christmas.
Okay.
So he got his goons to shoot up the Christmas tree.
Okay, let's back up to the beginning here. Everyone knows the plot of the movie. We're not going to explain the plot, but I'm just going to go through. In the beginning of the movie, it opens with Pee Wee Herman and the girl from Pee-wee's Big Adventure as Penguin's parents. I love that whole bit. I love it, right? They dump the baby into the water. We get the origin of Penguin. Okay, fine. Everything works up until that point. So the first 2 minutes of the movie. Then, all of a sudden, we have the Letty the Christmas... Now, this is where it gets weird, because the opening of the movie is very cool. Like, it's obviously fake. It's a set, but it works like in an Edward Scissorhands kind of Tim Burton way. It works. Now, then when we get to the city square, it's cool, but it starts to become a little bit weird, because it's now very obvious. Oh, Gotham is like 20 feet by 20 feet.
It was so claustrophobic the entire movie.
Yes, very claustrophobic. Which, okay, I can forgive, but then it's
the original didn't feel expansive by any means either.
No, but it was more expensive than this, right? Because like when you go to Vicky Vale's apartment, and then they're coming out of the stairway, and there's the press conference, and then there's the museum. At least they suggest that it's bigger.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Then they have the press conference, and then the present that's wrapped comes out, and everything is explained. But it's like there's something weird about this movie I've noticed since 1992. I have to like listen to the dialogue because it's so weird in the mix, and the way the characters talk is so like almost flat that the present comes out. And someone says, "Oh, good idea," and then Max Schreck says, "It's not my idea," or something like that. Mm-hmm. Then the circus bad guys come out of the thing. But I swear to God, I thought this when I was 15 or 13. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? What are these circus people doing? Why are they doing it? Like, at least in Dark Knight, they're robbing a bank. I get it. In this movie, what are they doing? They're running around. They're terrorizing people.
They're doing mayhem.
They're doing, they're wreaking havoc. And then, then activate the signal. Okay, again, I love this movie, but what is Bruce Wayne doing when he's not Batman? Just sitting in the dark.
Well, I assume...
waiting for the signal?
I assume,
Come on.
He doesn't have anything to do besides be Batman at this point, right? Like, that's all he cares about is, like, waiting for a signal.
The signal? Okay, fine.
Whatever.
So he comes, he punches a bunch of people, which is fine. He rescues Selena Kyle. I actually love that part when he's walking and Commissioner Gordon's trying to talk to him. Even though Commissioner Gordon in this movie is completely sidelined.
Yeah.
He's trying to talk to him, and I like the fact that this establishes, they kind of have a relationship, but not really, right? I like that, but then it's just, I don't know. Then Bruce Wayne kind of rescues Selena Kyle
and then stares at her for 45 seconds while she stammers and while mayhem continues behind her.
Yes. Anyone could have shot him at that point and killed him, but it's just chaos. Again, movie set. It doesn't feel like a real city. There's no real people. There's Selena Kyle and maybe a couple other people I don't remember. But then it's like, this is, the movie gets even weirder. Then Max Schreck walks away and falls down a trapdoor. This is where the directing gets bad. Okay? We don't see him fall. Remember, he's got to fall from like some type of height in the sewer to land like 25 feet. But this is how Tim Burton directs it. What's his name? Christopher Walken is looking down, and he just looks up and looks around and is wondering where he is. Where's his fall? Where's his violent fall from? He must have fallen through a sewer, a pipe, or something. But there's no landing. There's no harm to his body. Okay, fine. Then we have this weird scene of them talking to each other, and Penguin has this dialogue. He explains his whole motivation. There's a couple good lines in there when he's like, "I want to find out who my parents are." That part's good. All the dialogue between them, it's confusing because it goes nowhere. It comes from nowhere, and honestly, despite what you said before we rolled, I don't think Danny DeVito is right for the Penguin at all.
Interesting.
Not at all. No.
I love him in this role.
Okay.
I don't think this isn't quite Batman Penguin from the comics.
Not at all.
Like very different origin.
So news from Ian. He doesn't have the flipper hands.
Yeah, that's a Tim Burton thing.
He's just a regular guy.
I recall the Penguin was in the 1960s Batman television
show. Yeah,
he was just
he was the main villain actually.
Yeah, he was just some like aristocrats.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And he was called the Penguin because he was always dressed up in like a tuxedo.
Yeah, that's the joke. Exactly. He's the Penguin, yeah.
And he is more of like a mob boss type character, I feel like, in the comics today.
Yeah.
And you can see that in like the Christopher Reeves Matt Reeves.
Oh, the Matt Reeves.
Sorry.
Yeah, 100%. You're right. They did it right.
Batman.
They did it right. Yes.
Like he's more of just like a guy. This one, I'm fine with them taking creative liberty and changing
that's fine.
it.
Yeah.
Especially for this version of Batman, I think it works. And for this version, I think Danny DeVito, like I can't see anybody else playing this weird, like
Okay, let's just talk about Danny
monster
DeVito.
version
I don't know.
him.
What do you think?
I love it.
I'm conflicted on this because I love Danny DeVito, and this version of the Penguin is very compelling in some very weird ways.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think it works on a whole in this movie. Right? Like, if you were to... But I don't know what kind of movie it would work in. It's just, it's so weird, but it's cohesively weird. His origin, it doesn't make any sense, but it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was very like I couldn't understand what he was saying half the time.
Yes, exactly. But that's part of it.
This goes back to something you said earlier, that you've seen this movie 50, 100 times, and the dialogue is always weirdly mixed.
Yeah.
I thought that was a problem here. No. And I was messing with it for 15, 20 minutes or so until I realized that everything is coming down the center channel, right? And if you're not familiar with the way movies are mixed, you generally have all your dialogue in the center channel. You'll have your Foley and your music is on your left and right. So you can mix things in relation to each other. But everything was coming on the center channel. So I couldn't do anything with it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't hear the dialogue over the footsteps.
Right, gotcha.
Right? Like the background noises that should have been very, very, very off to the side were very front and center.
Right.
Anyway, couldn't understand the Penguin. We're still talking about the Penguin, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I couldn't. Yeah.
I'm generally I'm confused in general right now because this movie is so confusing, and now I'm trying to remember things about it, and it's like this is Tim Burton's mushroom trip.
Like, that's the thing is, like, I appreciate everything, the visuals, the music, the art design, the characters, like when Christopher Walken is in that circus sewer environment, I'm like, this is a combination of like a Disney film, Dumbo, and like David Lynch's Elephant Man and all this stuff, and I love it. But what are they actually saying? And I can't understand it. And when I decipher it, it doesn't quite make sense or amount to anything. I think they concoct a plan, but it's not really a smart plan. And okay, I got to say one more thing with Danny DeVito. Here's the thing: Burgess Meredith played the Penguin in the TV show, and I think just like Frank Gorshin, he's perfect. Like I think you could take Burgess Meredith and put him in like 2024 and it'd be perfect. And he did, like you said, Ian, he played him like a sophisticated aristocrat. I believe he's British, right? Am I wrong? I think he was. Maybe. Sort of. But but you know, a genius
he
named...
talks like a penguin. I don't know. Yeah. Like he has this kind of...
But he has like his accent is like... Here's the thing. I don't like Jay Leno, but he made a very good point that the character is very like Victorian. His name, Oswald Cobblepot, the way he dresses, like everything about him. So then when you think of that, now you have Danny DeVito. I love Danny DeVito, but he has like a nerd New Jersey accent. He has a very blue-collar way of acting, like body language, the way he talks and everything. And I just don't think he fits the Penguin at all. Now, Ian, you just said, where would this fit? Well, here's another question. Who would play it better? Peter Lorre, okay, fine, but Peter Lorre would have been 150 when this movie was made. He'd be dead. So someone else, I don't know. I just think that
But then I don't think that you can have this version of the Penguin. Then I don't think that you have this like sewer dwelling monster version of the Penguin, because I don't think that fits.
If it's like
you know what I mean? Maybe you just don't.
Victorian.
Yeah. Maybe you just don't do it this way.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Tim Burton, I guarantee that he was sitting around, he's like, what if the Penguin was a literal penguin?
Yeah.
Well, let's run with that.
Yeah, you're right.
And shoehorned it in. Like, there's no reason for the Penguin to be a literal penguin.
You know, I think a big thing about this movie that feels confusing is that, like, the world building of, like, wouldn't this be cool to look like this, or the design of this, that all works. But for me, the world building of like the Penguin's backstory is not fully realized for me enough. I get the whole dumping him down the well, obviously, but then Bruce Wayne spends the first part of this movie trying to figure out the real origin of Oswald, and we find out that he was in the circus for a while, and the circus shut down, and like,
but that's also
they were all trying to and they were all trying to escape. So that's what this gang is. Like, they're all people from the circus that escaped with him. That's why there's the guy with the monkey and the box and all this stuff, right? Why not have them be a part of like the zoo that shut down, and that's why they're living in the zoo? Like, I feel like,
well,
then Bruce Wayne can figure out where he's hiding. He can like use his detective skills to like.
Okay, well, this goes back to the fact that on the one hand, you think there's not enough. The characters, either there's not enough characters or they're not explained enough. But I think there's too much. If we have our fictional movie where this is just about the Penguin and not Catwoman at all, we can do that story. We can just follow. It's like, here's Penguin having his mayoral campaign, and then in the meantime, Bruce Wayne or Batman is investigating and finding out all these things and trying to expose what happened. But at the same time, it can't just be him looking at a little computer. There's got to be some visual, like pictures or not flashbacks, but something, so the viewer can go, oh, I get it, this is what happened. But it's just like one little thing where it's like he's reading a newspaper article and I barely understand what he figured out, right? And then it just skips on to the next thing. And it's like all these really cool ideas are just barely touched upon. That's the problem. None of them are fully developed and paid off.
And his detective skills of like finding out his backstory doesn't actually affect the plot. He didn't need to figure out where the Penguin was from when he was a child and then in between now. Right. Like, it doesn't matter.
Like, it's a basic idea. Like, it's a first draft idea. Like, he's looking for his parents. He lost his parents. I lost my parents. Driving by him at night while he's looking through the library records or whatever, going to all these things are great visuals. They'll look amazing, but it's like they only look amazing. There's nothing to them. There's other than the bare visuals of what you see. There's nothing, And then we get to, again, you talked about like, well, kill the firstborn. So there's obviously biblical overtones. Being dumped in the river is Moses. 33 years later, I guess, is Jesus. And then I think there's another Jesus reference later on. But then now I'm going to kill all the firstborns. But like you said, it's like, okay, other than the fact that that's a biblical reference, why else would he do that? Okay, I guess he was the firstborn, so he wants to get revenge against all the other firstborns. And while we were talking at the bar, I heard someone else point out, like, that plot was resolved in like 5 seconds. He wants to kill the firstborns. He sends everybody out, and then Batman's shadow shows up. He punches that guy, and then Penguin is hand-delivered a letter by a monkey, and it just says something like, "Oh, your plan didn't work," or
the children regret to inform you that they will not be able to attend on Batman's own stationery.
Okay, no, listen. This is where now it's Adam West Batman. This movie becomes the Adam West Batman in the last third. That's fine.
I mean, even during the middle, I feel like it. There's times where like it feels very Adam West Batman when he's replaying the speech that the Penguin did to him from the CD, and he like puts it in his Bat MP3 player or CD player.
Totally
and
Adam
he's
West
like
Batman.
remixing it on a CD for some reason.
And he does a little
possible.
What the fuck? I know. It's and again,
and I think Alfred's got headphones on behind him.
Yes. Yeah. It's mad. Okay. The other thing too is even when I was a kid and I saw this movie and Michelle Pfeiffer is like, to destroy Batman, we must first turn him into what he hates the most, namely us. In my head, I'm like, oh, that's Adam West Batman writing. That's exactly it. Like, we're going to turn the public against him, which, by the way, was the plot of Batman Returns and Spider-Man 1 and I think Spider-Man 2 and Dark Knight. And I'm so sick of that idea of we're going to make everyone think that the good guy's a bad guy. And in this movie, they do it terribly. How do they do it? They trick the public into thinking Batman is responsible for what? Like, what does he do again? I don't remember.
He kills the...
Oh, he kills the girl.
Yeah.
It's I'm sorry. There's things about this movie I love. That was garbage. Okay, right now we're still just talking about our fictional movie that only has the Penguin in it. So let's just say that's all the plot. Again, we're in this weird time. So the script is written by Daniel Waters, who did Heathers. Has anyone seen Heathers?
No.
It's pretty good, but it's one of those movies that could only come out in the early 90s. Like, I don't know how these movies were even released, which is cool. Very dark and disturbing. And this movie has that, like, undertone of weirdness. But the actual plot of what happens, as we've said many times so far in the last 25 minutes, it doesn't amount to anything for me. And I think the solution could be just remove Max Schreck and just have it be the Penguin. That's what I think. And
I think that Max Schreck and the Penguin could work together. I mean,
if there was no Catwoman,
if in this hypothetical movie,
okay.
right? Like, I don't know how we could fit Catwoman in, if we could or not, but if Max Schreck is behind the scenes pulling the strings, then it works. But I don't like the idea that the Penguin he was just a patsy. In this movie, he didn't have any motivations of his own,
right?
Aside from bizarre biblical revenge.
Okay, now what about the fact that he utilized a army of penguins to destroy Gotham? Again, we mentioned Adam West. At that point in the movie, it's like, okay, all bets are off. This is now the 1966 TV show, right?
You know, I
love it, though. I love it.
I love it. But I think I would, like, a small part of me doesn't buy it.
Well,
because they didn't like give us like a setup for the fact that the Penguins are mind controlled. You know what I mean? Like, give us some sort of small little thing for me to buy it in fiction. When it just kind of just shows up that, oh, I'll just use my mind-controlled penguins to destroy Gotham.
Yeah,
it's
good point.
Where were they the whole movie? Like, why not
utilize
this
and
now?
All that would take is a 30-second scene earlier on where he has a penguin bring him something with the remote control. Yeah. And now we know that this is a thing that's possible.
Yeah, because they do, like, they also do they control the Batmobile. And it's kind of like the same device or whatever that's on the Penguins is on the Batmobile. But, like, how they got the plans to the Batmobile is beyond me. They don't explain that. How they know how to rewire and attach this thing onto it to become a remote control. It's like, I don't mind these ideas as long as there's, like, a good
explanation and setup and payoff.
And it doesn't need to be smart. But you need to at least show me that they've done this thing rather than, like, you know.
Okay, first of all, two things. Either he's raised by penguins or he's raised by the circus. I don't think it can be both.
Yeah,
right?
I don't love the raised by penguins thing.
So, okay, fine. Now, as far as the plan of we've got this plan. We're going to take over the Batmobile and turn it into a hydrogen bomb or whatever. Why? Why do that?
This was just furthering the villainizing Batman. Because I think while they were working on putting this remote control device in the Batmobile, that was when Batman was having the exchange with the Ice Princess or whoever the person was.
Sure. Yeah. And then when he's driving through, he's destroying all the cars. But again, it's not like... to me, it's not clear of that's the goal, really. And it's not clear that what the result is. And again, I've seen this movie 100 times, and I'm never like, why are they doing that? What is happening? What's the result?
No, I think it's clear what the goal is. It's just, why are they doing it? And after they do it, what really does it
accomplish? Right?
Because we also don't even get like even a scene of the public being against Batman after that, right?
Right.
Like, it is successful. We see everybody screaming, the Batman just killed her. Oh, my God. And then it's never brought up again.
No, it's just so... And again, I know that this movie exists in kind of like a... It's like... It's not in a normal timeline. It's sort of 1930s, but sort of 1980s. Also, there's some universal horror imagery, and the acting is exaggerated, and I can appreciate that. But at least, like you said, show us. Okay, now it's established the Batman is a villain. But it's almost like there's no contrast. There's no breathing room. So, like, have all the nighttime fight scenes. Is there a day scene in this whole movie? Is there?
Not too many.
Because in the first Batman, at least they showed okay, now they're back at the newspaper talking. Now they're having a press conference. And at least you can see the ramifications of the plan where, like you said, show a couple scenes of people on the street going, oh, yeah, that Batman, he's a bad guy. Or whatever. Not that, but something.
Well, anything. Like
Anything.
even that.
Yeah.
Even that.
Just
as long as we know. Because they put an awful lot of effort into trying to vilify him.
Right.
And to have nothing come of it.
There's a couple of newspapers
Right.
printed, I think.
Right.
And they're in the same style as all of the like Catwoman and Penguin are bad newspapers, but like again, how does this stop Batman from stopping them? Yeah, like
okay.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Now let's imagine another fictional version of this movie that just has Catwoman and maybe Max Schreck, but no Penguin. Okay? Because there's a huge section of this movie that is dedicated to the origin of Catwoman. So let's just talk about it. It kind of works and it kind of doesn't. Now, here's another thing. News for Ian. In the comics, Catwoman does not get killed and then resurrected by mystical cats and given cat powers.
Oh, really? Well, shucks.
In the comics, Selena Kyle just puts on a cat suit and steals.
she's like a
Cat, she's a cat burglar. That's all she is. Okay. So in this movie, as everyone knows, she gets cat powers from mystical cats.
it's very unclear if that's actually
What happens.
right? Because it's
Well, the alternative isn't very compelling, right? Like the way that it sort of plays out in my brain, my skeptical brain, is that she fell through various awnings and then landed.
Yeah.
And she spent the rest of the movie terribly concussed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? She stumbles home.
Yeah.
She
just
drinks
snaps.
milk and it just starts putting all her stuffed animals in the garbage disposal, smashing up pictures, and then sits down at the sewing machine and makes a beautiful outfit.
Perfect. Yeah.
Perfect outfit. She's concussed. She's mentally
like in shock.
impaired.
Like exactly. And here's the thing: is that again, this is Tim Burton and Daniel Waters. It's coming through. I appreciate the big idea of like this girl who's kind of mousy and she's bullied and then she has this other side to her that comes out now, and now she's going to get revenge against the boss that did this to her. I love the idea. I love the idea of her destroying her old identity and creating a new one. It's all, I appreciate it. It's all good. But then it kind of like, it's like they build it up, and then it just, okay, now we're going to cut to Penguin. And then we're going to cut back. Then we're going to cut to Penguin. But it's like, it's not organic, and it doesn't all fit together. So again, just following the fictional Selena Kyle thing, I love the fact that then Michael Keaton, Bruce Wayne, has the meeting with Max Schreck, and then she just shows up. In fact, it started to make me realize all the scenes with Selena Kyle and Bruce Wayne are great.
Their chemistry is fantastic in this movie, and it's a shame that we don't get more of that.
Right.
Like I want more scenes between the two of them to buy their like love story a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because it really works, I think, when they have their really weird first date at Wayne Manor.
It's great. It's perfectly written, perfectly directed.
The two of them at the masquerade ball.
It's great.
Fantastic.
I love it.
The fact that they both don't show up in masquerade masks is like a brilliant little detail.
Smart. You're right. Good point.
Her kind of finally snapping and having the gun and like
I love it.
That's great. Like I think all of that stuff really works. I just wish that I cared a little bit more about the two of them. Like I want them to work out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish I wanted that a little bit more in the movie to just make those scenes like even more powerful.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. Ian, did you appreciate those scenes as much as us?
I did. Those are the only parts of this movie that really worked.
Okay.
I think was the interplay between the two of them. Now I'm gonna rewind a little bit and say that I think that Selena Kyle's early scenes were kind of dumb. I don't like the way that she was portrayed immediately as this unlucky in love, can't keep a man around, and this is the first thing that we're told about her is that she my answering machine, blah blah blah, and honey, I'm home. Oh wait, I'm not married.
Right.
grown.
Well,
Come on, this is just.
Here's the problem. It's hard to do this when you look like Michelle Pfeiffer. Like it's Michelle Pfeiffer, and she's pretending that she's not beautiful and perfect.
That's why we probably got those lines,
we don't need
right?
any of that, though.
Yeah.
We don't need that. We don't need her to be a mousy...
Sure.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. She can be mistreated at work, certainly.
Yeah.
And I think
the fact that... Sorry to interrupt, but the fact that Michelle Pfeiffer is an attractive person probably plays a little bit more into that sort of thing, right? Like she can be not taken seriously at work because she is attractive.
Sure, okay.
And that can be sort of the impetus for why she has this conflict with her boss. Mm-hmm. She doesn't need to be written as a lonely spinster, right?
Sure.
I mean, I know that they're probably trying to go for the whole crazy cat lady thing.
Sure.
Just because, I don't know, it's low-hanging fruit.
Sure. But here's the thing. I see what you're getting at, but again, when I go back to the whole idea of like the first draft with a lot of cool ideas that were never developed, I don't mind. Like that idea to me is fine compared to the Penguin plot. It's better to me than the Penguin plot.
Well, just because it's better than the Penguin plot doesn't mean that it's any good.
Okay, that's true. That's true. But I'm just saying that I don't mind it. And I'm not saying it's perfect.
Flesh out her character a little bit more. I don't know. Make her like she's working to support an artistic career because she is an interpretive dancer.
Sure.
And
or a seamstress, or
well,
something.
I mean, something that explains how she's able to. She doesn't walk around anymore. Now she cartwheels around, and she's like she's a ninja. She does martial arts. All of a sudden,
like she has a hidden talent as a dancer or whatever it may be, a gymnast. But she has to pay the bills by being a secretary.
Yeah.
There you go. You're right.
We just solved her backstory.
There you go. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. But again, because this movie doesn't give her enough time to develop, those ideas can never come to fruition.
Mm-hmm. Which I guess points to the fact that she's just a mutant cat now. And that's what it is.
Who's able to be shot.
Reflexes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And she has 9 lives.
We're not even going to talk about that. It's like, forget it. The realism's out the window. But let's just talk about... okay, because we talked about how the movie feels like a set. And again, now, let's go... One thing we did when we talked about the first Batman is our first experience seeing it. I saw it... Okay, Batman 89 came out, and in my mind, I thought, well, there's going to be another one in 12 months, okay? Now, when you're that age, when you're a teenager, 3 years is an eternity, okay? So I had to wait from grade 7 to grade 8, 9, 10. That felt like forever for me, okay? And I saw it opening night with Charles Corcoran, and I thought it was the greatest movie ever made, okay? Better than the first Batman. And I watched it probably more than the first Batman. I loved it more than the first Batman. But again, as time goes by, all these flaws came out that we're talking about. But I just want to reiterate that point that it came out during a time where the plot makes no sense, but all the themes worked. Like the rough ideas worked for me. So that's what I loved about it. But Ian, what's your first experience with this movie?
My first experience that I can recall of this movie, I didn't see this in theaters.
Oh, okay.
I watched it at home on Channel 22, First Choice Movie Network. Probably recorded it. And I probably watched it once or twice after that.
Like ever?
Ever.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. This movie, it had tinges of familiarity to it when I watched it again here. But I didn't remember a lot of the nonsense that happened.
I feel like I feel like I have 95% of this movie memorized. There's a few parts where I was like, I don't remember that part, but everything else, I'm like, no, it's here. It's in my DNA. But Josh, what's your experience with this film?
These films have always kind of been around for me.
Sure.
All of the 90s, 89 to 90s Batman movies have been. This was always my favorite one out of all 4. And still is.
Why is he on the show? No, I love it.
I think I agree with you guys that the first one is better. It's a better film, but I just love this one more. I have ever since I was a kid. I love the character characters. I love the portrayal of them.
Are you speaking present tense or past tense right now?
I still like it better.
I loved it.
I still like it better, and I understand it's not as good of a film as the first.
Here's the thing, though. But like Ian, you've seen Edward Scissorhands.
No, I have not.
What the?
Wait, have I seen Edward Scissorhands?
There's so many gaps in your film.
Oh, there are.
Okay, have you seen Ed Wood?
Yes.
Okay, I love that movie. But like this fits. Like here's the thing: this is more of a Tim Burton film than
a
the first
Batman
one.
movie.
Yeah, definitely. You're
Yeah.
right. That's a good point. Is that Tim Burton took Batman and he recast it through his own like thing. And this may be a blockbuster. It may be a Hollywood film, and it may make no sense. However, it's like to me, Penguin is recast in Tim Burton's right.
Yep.
Psychology of like. Tim Burton felt like an outcast. Tim Burton felt like a freak. And so that is all channeled into this character. And even though it doesn't quite work, that's why I love it, right?
Yeah.
It's an analogy for how he felt. And that's why I think it resonates with people. Even though it's not, the plot doesn't quite work. I think those ideas, those raw ideas are there. And that's why I'm impressed that Hollywood even let this movie exist back then. You know?
Well, there was also a lot of backlash for this movie, right? Because it is such a departure from the first one, and it's way more dark in tone, and more graphic and more sexual.
Yeah, which we'll talk about. Yeah.
And like they couldn't sell toys like they could with the first one.
True.
Because a lot of kids weren't allowed to go see this movie.
Yeah, so I have I used to record everything off TV, and I have like a 1 hour special on like Sally, Jesse, Raphael, where a bunch of like parents and kids are complaining about this movie, how dark, how violent it is. Like the scene in the movie where Penguin bites the
guy's nose,
and it just starts spraying blood everywhere. There's a lot of mean-spiritedness in this movie. I don't mind it, but I can understand in 1992 when parents were like, okay, I'm bringing my kids to see a Batman film or a superhero movie. What the hell is this, right? And so it did make a lot of money, but not nearly as much as the first one.
Okay.
And so after this movie came out, Warner Brothers was like, they panicked. And they're like, okay, the next movie's got to be lighter. It's got to be this. It's got to be that. And so they didn't fire Tim Burton, but they basically told him, this is what you have to do or else. And he's like, okay, screw this. And then Michael Keaton was like, okay, screw that. And then that's why they went with Joel Schumacher and Jim Carrey and the whole other thing, which we'll talk about in a future episode of the show. But this movie, it's like once in a while, Hollywood will just let filmmakers do whatever they want.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes it bites them in the ass. But I appreciate it.
I wonder if the studio did kind of pull him back a little bit and he had a little bit more of a restriction if the other two Batman movies would have been different and would have been more along this line rather than...
It's not the darkness and the violence and the sexuality. It's the coherence. If it would have been more coherent, it would have been more successful. But like, whereas me, I loved it. I remember going to see this movie with John Morgan, and I in my brain thought he's gonna react the same way I did, which is it's a masterpiece. And he's like, no, I mean I think it's okay. I like the gadgets. That's about it. And in my brain, I couldn't comprehend how someone couldn't love it as much as me, just like you, I'm sure. But the incoherence, I think, is what made it kind of fail the box office. Ian, what do you think?
It's hard to say. A lot of very incoherent movies have been very popular.
That's a good point.
I don't know if that's necessarily what people... Oh, I can't wait to see a coherent movie in theaters. No, people want to see stuff blowing up, and people want to see boobs.
That's true.
And I think this movie ticks some boxes. I'm not surprised that it was popular, but I'm also not surprised that there was a backlash because you don't have the internet back then. You go to this movie based on what you remember of the first movie, and you didn't have a scene where Michelle Pfeiffer is licking a man's face, all right? If you bring your 10-year-old kid, Mom, what's she doing? I could see parents getting a little bit bent out of shape about it.
Sure.
Not bringing their kids to see it a second or a third time. I think that has probably as much to do with it as...
Okay, which brings us to our next point. You just mentioned one point, and I referenced it, but there's a weird sexuality to this movie where, like, for example, there's the part where the girl takes off her coat and she's like scantily clad and she's going to light the Christmas tree. And then when Jan Hooks from Saturday Night Live is introduced, she is talking to Penguin, and then she's sitting on the desk, and Penguin's like, oh, I'd like to fill her void. And it's like now we're getting these weird sexual puns in this movie, and there's a couple other ones that I forgot about. But it's weird.
Yeah,
and it doesn't fit. It doesn't jive. What was the other one?
When he first sees Catwoman, he says,
"That's just the pussy I was looking for."
Oh, yeah.
And there's more. Like when they're interacting.
There's plenty.
There's a lot of them.
He puts the campaign button on the girl's boob.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah. That's right. And it's kind of like, this is weird. Again, it's almost like you go, okay, is this appropriate? I guess. No, it's not. I don't know. No. Is it? I don't know.
Has Batman ever been about that sort of thing?
No.
Well, there you go. It's not.
I agree.
Whether or not it's culturally appropriate to have this sort of thing in a movie is one thing. Whether or not it's appropriate for a Batman movie,
that's a good point.
That's the question.
I agree. Whereas, and then people will like pipe back. Oh, but it's so violent and this, that, and the other. It's a different thing. I think the kids can understand and process violence and not replicate it and not duplicate it and be fine, because I grew up with Yosemite Sam blowing off Daffy Duck's head with a shotgun, and I'm fine, okay? But then there's difference between that and explaining this sexuality. Because even when I was like 14, 15, I was like, what? Why are they doing that in this movie? Why are they going that route? And I just don't know if there's any point to it, right?
No, for gags, because it is this kind of gross little man in the sewers that is horny.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the joke. Like, it doesn't serve any other purpose in the movie besides that. So
low-hanging fruit again. It's
good point.
It's a weird choice, a weird character choice that was made. And they stuck with it for the whole
movie. So, okay, here's the other thing, too. And this is an observation I made back in 92. Once they start the explosions and, like, Catwoman comes in and is whipping people with her whip. What else would you whip someone with? They're on a set. This is not a city. There's no extras. There's no people. And it feels very weird. Like, remember when she... cartwheels towards them and is like meow, and then the store blows up and everything's floating around, and then Penguin leaves. Where are the people? There's
it's
no
supposed to be
humans.
like late at night, but it does feel empty at times.
Yeah, like at least in Superman 2, when the villains attack the city, it felt like a real city and there was consequences. But this just feels like they're on a movie set. It doesn't work at all for me. Ian, what do you think?
I felt that as well. I noticed at one point I was seeing the same car over and over and over again.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, there's that Jetta. There it goes again. There it goes again. There it goes again. 15 times I saw this car.
Wow. Okay.
And if like I didn't have a Volkswagen sitting in my driveway, I might not have picked up on it.
Sure.
But you're using the same car 15 times.
Right.
And it's also, like we said, the set is like as big as this bar. It's tiny. Gotham is like 15 feet wide. But it just felt like I can appreciate the fake sets, and I can appreciate that they're standing on top of a skyscraper having these casual conversations, and there are 100 stories in the air. I can accept that, but at least make it feel like it's real. But they don't even try, you know? And so, I don't know. There's just so many weird things. And then, like, Batman and Catwoman are fighting, and then Batman just climbs up on the ledge for no reason, spreads his wings, and all of a sudden, he has these, like, hard pterodactyl wings that give him flight. He swoops down for no reason, swings around, flops down, and then all of a sudden now it's a cape again. And I'm watching this movie going, why did he do that? What was the point of that? I just don't get it. Right?
Yeah, they needed to sell the action figure.
Yeah, that was probably it.
Yeah, so they're like, we'll just have him use it to get to the Batmobile.
Oof. Yeah. Anyway.
They did a bunch of stuff like that. I remember, do you remember the part when he was racing. He was being chased by the cops.
I hated that. Yeah.
And he was going to race in between a couple of buildings, and he's flipping with a button. He's like, oh, now I'm worried. But then he does something to turn the Batmobile into a thin Batmobile.
Yeah, he jettisons off the sides and just becomes like this little missile.
The bat sausage.
Yeah. And then it's like, then you go, well, if he could do that, why didn't he always do that? And then why would they build 2 buildings with only an opening this wide? And it's just, that's the point of the movie where it becomes like a 1970s James Bond film when it's like, it's just stupid. It just becomes dumb at that point, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, yes, this film has a lot of Tim Burton in it, but at that point, it just becomes a studio spectacle, a big piece of crap spectacle. I didn't like that part at all. Yeah. But what did you think?
I don't mind that part if the rest of the movie works. Like, I don't mind a little bit of spectacle, but I feel like that's what the whole movie was a big spectacle. You know what I mean?
You liked it though.
I do.
Oh,
I didn't know. I do, but I see it for its flaws, and I agree that the plot is not great. Yeah, and I like it would be. I think it would be easier for me to be like, oh, I really liked that moment if it wasn't like, again, the wings coming out and then using that, and then immediately it turns into like the bat pod or whatever it is, and then like, why does he need the bat jet to go through the sewers?
Oh no, that's a bat hovercraft.
Oh, but right, yeah.
Come on,
different toy.
Get it straight, Josh. Anyway,
so you know, it's like, I think that if everything else works in the movie, I buy Batman and his weird gadgets and having all these things. Like it works. It works in the Dark Knight when he has the Batmobile that turns into the motorcycle.
Yep.
And I think it's because it feels grounded. Everything in the movie feels grounded. So when we have these like small moments of like, oh, he's developed this piece of tech just in case the Batmobile breaks down, he can transform it into like a smaller little vehicle and continue to ride off, right? So that concept works fine for me. It is a little ridiculous that it looks like a hot dog, but
well, that's the thing. Is like,
you know,
you just hit it on the head. It's being grounded. Even like when the Penguin Army attacks, what are they attacking? I don't know. But when they're marching again, where are the people? Oh, I guess it's 3 a.m. But why not make it 8 at night?
And if you're gonna do your mayhem at all, why are you gonna do it at 3 a.m. when nobody's there?
Right.
Send your army of penguins out in the middle of the day so you can freak some people out.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah, get people in the zoo fleeing in terror. And just that extra element would ground everything. Would make it feel like, oh my God, this is really a threat. People are going to die. Gotham's going to be destroyed, whatever. But now it just feels like penguins attacking a movie set, right?
Mm-hmm. And then even that gets resolved by Batman pushing a button to reverse and jam the signal.
Oh.
And then the penguins turn around and go the other way.
So that's 100% Adam West Batman. 100%.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, by the way, I hated the scene where Batman was surrounded by like 4 or 5 people. And then he just programs his Batarang to fly around. It's like, what? You could have... Now that means you can do that for every scene. And there's no threat to you. Right? Just program your Batarang, and they'll wait for you to program it. They're not going to shoot you. They're not going to attack you.
Of course, that was the one setup with a payoff that I do remember in this movie, because the dog, one of the henchmen's dog jumped up and grabbed the Batarang and ran away with it.
Yeah.
And that Batarang was later planted to make Batman look guilty.
Okay, and it was kind of a funny joke. Yeah.
So much when Commissioner Gordon holds up the evidence bags like this. We don't know if this evidence here, this Batarang, has anything to do with Batman. It's very confidential, like on the news.
So stupid. The other thing too. Okay, we have to point out this was a different writer than the first Batman. The only real continuity between the first and second movie was Bruce Wayne, Michael Keaton, Michael Goff, I don't know how to pronounce his name, who plays Alfred, who was awesome. And then Commissioner Gordon, played by, what's his name? I don't remember. Commissioner Gordon is played by Dick Tracy.
What? Pat Hingle.
Pat Hingle.
Pat Hingle.
I don't like him as Commissioner Gordon at all, but at least he was in this movie to give it some continuity. He had like 3 lines, maybe.
Yeah.
But then where's Harvey Dent, played by Billy D. Williams? Why wasn't the mayor in this film? they could have given it a little bit more continuity with the first film. And then there was the inserted reference to Alfred letting Vicky Vale into the Batcave, which was a continuity patch, because I believe in the first movie that whole confusing scene was caused by like a weird edit where there was an explanation that they cut out.
Okay.
And then in this movie they had to explain it, so that's why they added that in. But anyway, it didn't work to me. So here's the thing. Batman Returns, 1992. It comes out. I love it. You love it.
Why is it called Batman Returns?
Terrible title. Terrible title. And the legacy continued with Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, Batman
Batman
Begins.
and Robin, sure, but yeah.
Yeah, Batman and Robin's okay, but Returns, Forever, and even Begins, I don't like.
Forever makes no sense.
No, it's garbage.
Returns, like maybe he's retired at the beginning of this movie if we're in our rewrite to make it a return.
Junk.
But like I don't know why it's called Returns.
No.
He's returning to the screen.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
It's not talking about Batman as the person. It's talking about Batman the movie.
The movie.
Right.
Yeah. Batman
Returns.
comes back.
The return
Batman
of the Batman movie.
Again.
I don't know.
Another Batman.
Another
That would
Yeah,
be a great
yeah, you might as well
Considering
call
how
it that.
ridiculous this entire movie was, if it was called Another Batman,
Yeah, you might as well, right? Might as
Right?
well. Now, here's the thing, and I pointed this out to Josh earlier. We have to mention that this movie led to the creation of the animated series that came out in 1992. Only 2 months after this, we got the animated series that has now become one of the definitive versions of Batman, which everyone loves. Then there's the comic book adaptation. The cover of #1 has Batman, Catwoman, and Penguin on the cover because they were the focus at that time. So we have to give it credit for that. I do love this movie as a thing, but the actual plot does not make sense to me. That's my final take on it.
Yeah, I think
love
as a
it, but-
movie, it's not great, but I think that it's one of the rare instances where I feel like it's like comic book characters, even though they're not always accurate. Like Penguin doesn't have like the flippers and all, but like when they're standing on the rooftops and they're having conversations, it feels like that's what's happening in comic books. Like,
okay,
you know what I mean? Like them having their like weird battles that sometimes don't lead anywhere. Like I felt like this is what it feels like to read a Batman comic.
Okay, I'll give you that. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Especially with like the set pieces and like the buildings looking like.
Oh, like the statues of the guys. Like, I love
or
all
like
that stuff.
or
I
even
love
like
it.
the Shrek building has like this weird like
Fritz the cat. Or Felix the cat on top. I know.
Something that's like
I love
rotating and they're like the main office is in that thing like rotate. It's ridiculous.
I love that stuff.
I think that's why I've always loved this movie as a kid, and then even to now, I just really love watching it. So I do like this movie.
I'm
a
with
lot.
you. I still love watching it.
this movie.
Ian?
I'm probably never going to watch this movie again.
What?
To be honest, I
We'll
mean,
just start another podcast, and then we'll just review this movie.
Right.
oh, the Batman Returns podcast.
Yeah,
Ian
yes.
Returns.
That's what we'll call it, the podcast returns.
So we watched Batman Returns again. Mike's up to 148 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I don't know. It was just too messy.
Wow.
There was a lot of stuff that I looked at and I could appreciate, but none of them are compelling enough to hold my attention. None of them are things I'm going to take away with me and say, man, I'm glad that I watched that. It just felt, I don't know, a little too dark, a little too claustrophobic. There was too much happening, but also not enough happening.
Right.
Right.
They focused too much on having as many people out there as possible, and nothing was fleshed out. It was a mess, and it went on too long, and I didn't like it. And the more I think about it, the less I like it. No, sorry.
Shucks.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
I mean, it's better than Captain America.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. Visually, come on.
No, visually, I enjoyed some of it, but
Okay.
at the same time, some of it visually didn't work for me because it felt as though
Artificial.
Tim Burton was trying to do a Tim Burton movie.
Okay.
And some of the things that I enjoyed about the first Batman film, and this one to some degree, went a little too over the top, a little too off the rails. Like those giant statues from the first one, those were great. And I think people told him, hey, those are great. And he did those statues of the people pulling the ropes that I don't think worked as well.
You know what? Okay, I'm going to agree with you because I did like them, but we have to point out the first ones were the architecture was all designed by Anton Furst.
Okay.
He died, committed suicide. So in this movie, you probably have some other guy imitating Anton Furst. So that's exactly what you're saying. Those statues, I did like them, but they seemed like cartoon exaggerations of a Tim Burton idea of a city.
And that continues on. I'm going to compare two buildings from the two Batman films. The museum, the Flugelheim Museum,
right,
the first one.
With Joker, yeah.
And the architecture was just stunning with these enormous industrial air vents set into the side of the building. But then the building, it just said Flugelheim Museum on the front in a very unadorned script.
Sure.
Now, compare that to the Hall of Records in this movie. And for some reason, the words Hall of Records are carved into these 15 feet tall stone slab letters that any one of them is the size of a bus.
Yes,
no, that looks ridiculous because nobody would design a government building to look like that. Whereas this museum, it's a nice example of brutalist architecture.
Yes.
And it works, and this is just silly.
Okay, you know what? Here's the thing. Again, going back to the visuals, even as a kid, I like the fact that the baby carriage they're pushing them in is exaggerated. The wheels are too big. The carriage is too big. It's like Looney Tunes. But it seems like then you're rushing the actors through the set to call attention to the fact that it is a set. And then when the Penguin goes to his parents' grave, I don't know if you've noticed this, the Penguin, when he walks to his parents' grave, he bumps into a what's it called, gravestone?
Oh, really?
And it's like styrofoam. And like Tim Burton was like, perfect, let's go to the next scene. It's like you got to have a little bit of, okay, you spent the time to design it, build it, now put a little bit of effort into shooting it. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's like one of those famous bloopers where Penguin walks and he bumps and it just goes like this.
Huh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah. And so that's
I was too distracted by the obviously pronounced spotlights that were trying to make it look like this was happening on a moonlit night.
Yeah,
but
and then
the spotlights just look like these here.
Yeah, I know. But again, it's like there's certain things I can forgive and certain things I can't. And certain things just felt too artificial. And like you talked about them being on the rooftops, I appreciated it. But again, just you have to ground it somehow. It was just since it wasn't grounded, it just felt like you're just watching people acting on a set. It was like a rehearsal. That's it. I don't know. But I still loved it. I don't know what else to say. It's still one of my favorite Batman movies. But I don't know. I'm definitely going to watch it again. Ian's never going to watch it again.
Yeah, if I ever see this movie again, it's too soon.
I'll probably watch it again like this year. Anyway, Josh, what's your final word?
Get the tiebreaker.
I like it. You know I like it. I think it's just, for all its faults, it's a really fun movie. I think that, what's that?
Penguin on the fucking rubber ducky is fucking fun.
It's so great.
Yes.
Like with the top hat and everything, like the long
That's
coat.
Batman, right?
That's so Batman. Great.
Yep.
I fucking love it.
I'm gonna give you that.
Yeah.
And like him taking the top hat off himself and putting it on the
duck,
like the duck of the head.
Yes.
Head of the duck.
There's like these little moments that just stick with me and are so ingrained. And I might be hyping this movie up a little bit more because I have this nostalgia for it. I have this love for it as a kid, but I really do like this movie, and I think it's super fun.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yeah. And for me, it outweighs the
negatives.
glaring bad moments and parts of this movie.
It's all right. So I'm not judging you guys. It's fine. You can like it if you want.
Okay.
I've had enough of it.
All right. Well, guess what? At some point, we're going to review Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. So look forward to those reviews. On our next episode, I think we're reviewing...
Another Captain America?
No.
I don't even know what would be
we're so
next.
out of order. I think it's Darkman, but don't quote me on that.
Ooh,
yeah,
I'm
I think
excited.
I think it's Darkman. But anyway, that's it. Keep watching Tape Crusaders. Keep watching Slam. And thank you, Ian, for having weekly movie nights at Meteor.
You're welcome.
Come out every week. Coming up, when you watch this episode, you might have time to plan to come and watch Big Lebowski or maybe even Wrath of Khan.
In 7 days.
In 7 days. So be sure to join us for that. Josh, you can take it from here.
Yeah, you can find all of our stuff over on our website at thecomicbooksyndicate.com. All of our podcasts are video format, so you can also check them out on our YouTube channel. Leave us a comment, leave us a like, let us know what you guys think about the stuff we're talking about. Yeah, keep in touch.
That's
We'll
right.
see you next time.
Till the next time, see you later. Bye.